Things have been shaking and moving in New Jersey and New York in the area, and it's not the sound of the balls hitting the back of the net for New York City FC. It's NYCFC Views, that and a whole lot more coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, here we go, everybody. We're back. There's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks, your favorite radio commentators, at least for New York City FC, outside of Matty Lawrence and Ariel Hudas, of course. Roberto. So I got to start out with, I was doing a Sirius XM FC interview at about between 11 and 11:30 this morning, Eastern time. And I'm in this is my basement office. So I'm in a basement, okay? And the house literally starts shaking in a way where, sometimes trucks come by or something, there's a little rattle. But this one, shook, and then it kept shaking, and then it kept shaking. And I'm going to say 15 seconds. But the guy I was interviewing was in Philadelphia, and he saw me looking around, and he says to me, "Did you feel that too?" So it was, we had an earthquake today. Wow,
we did.
We're not in Southern California, so it's not like a daily occurrence. It's something that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with earthquakes in Mexico City. I felt some pretty major ones over there, like in 6s and 7s. So this was 4.8, I think, which is still, pretty sizable. But I didn't feel it. I was in the kitchen making breakfast. I did not feel it at all. And it was sort of weird. But then, all of a sudden I started looking on social media, and people tell me, "Did you feel the earthquake?" And I went, "No."
No,
But I'm glad everybody's okay. Nobody got hurt, it seems. Everything's fine. And by the way, I thought that, the epicenter was in New Jersey. And I thought that, Jersey was supposed to send over their best and brightest. Obviously, they don't.
Well, listen. It was in a place called, and here, I know we're supposed to retweet this. How do we simply do this? Because we're live, and we've done live now, I think, for 3 consecutive podcasts. But what's the best way to retweet it? How do I find it?
You've got to go. Really? Oh God!
I found the Sick Podcast, so that should be.
Yeah, so that's where you go, and then you just retweet that.
All right. But I had to look for it. Okay, good. I'm done. I did my task. Lebanon,
can I give you a suggestion? And this goes for everybody, so they don't miss it. No, listen to me.
Sure.
Okay, you can put advisories on. So like every time that the new podcast comes out, you get some. It comes up on your timeline in Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So I get an alert for that, and then it's just easy to find it. One click, you're there, and then you retweet.
All right.
Or you listen, which is what I'm hoping everybody's doing right now.
So Lebanon, New Jersey, which is kind of in the west part of Jersey, is where this 4.8 epicenter was, Roberto. And I did have somebody visit from Summit, New Jersey, in between, and he said that things fell off of his shelves too. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much. But the Empire State Building is safe. Look, I love that the Empire State Building is tweeting.
That's great.
And then the outfield.
I mean, it really is a good tweet.
This one is a little mean from the outfield. Hearing reports that the earthquake was caused by Monsef Bakrar's goals scored per expected goals.
Wait, you mean something did move? Okay.
Oh, so I guess my intro was mean too. But man, 4 goals in 6 matches, Roberto. 1-1 draw at Miami. In my pregame with Nick Cushing, I said, well, I think one thing that you have to kind of rest on at least a little bit is the 4 points, right? The 4 points gained this year have all come from losing positions. Now it's only 4 points in 6 matches. We understand that's, not going to get you into a playoff position, but
no,
they have come from losing positions. So there's something to be said about that. team has been able to come back in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's really early in the season, and New York City has played 2 home games, and they've played 4 road games. So, and we know that, they struggled a little bit on the road, although they got a result. They got a tie in Miami. They got a great goal by Alonso Martinez. So, things are looking up. That's their first road goal. That was their first road point. Now they have 5 in a row at home. So things are a little bit skewed. It's still early in the season. 2 home games, which of course they lost 1, which they were in a winning position, oddly enough. And then they won 1, which is beating Toronto, which was a good Toronto team at the time. So, it's early. I'm not getting too crazy about anything. I think we'll have a much better sense of where the team is, once they play these 5 games at home. And then it'll be skewed a little bit the other way. But if they do well at home, if they continue to play well at home, as they have throughout their history, and they get, I don't know, anywhere between 10 and 15 points between all these games, then, all of a sudden we're looking at something totally different, than the 4 points that they have, which is next to last. And you can go and look at all the negative stuff you want and, put it out there.
Well, look at Matt Freese. So, Sammy, if we could switch the order a little bit, this is the clip from the presser yesterday. Matt Freese addressing the possession or lack thereof, and it has to do now with playing at home. So here's what he said about that. If we could run that.
Important to separate away games from home games in this conversation. Keeping the ball at home is always very different from keeping the ball away, and we've had 4 away games and 2 home games. So as far as, looking at the numbers of possession, stuff like that, I think it's somewhat difficult to compare after only 2 home games relative to previous seasons. I personally think, the Sixes, Jimmy, Keaton, Andres, are doing a really, really good job at getting on the ball. And when they get on the ball, it's very noticeable, their quality and their composure on it. And I think everyone in the back line is also doing a good job at keeping it and knowing the moments when we should keep it and when we can't.
So that's for the guy that's looking at everything in front of him. Although I think as a group, we've discussed that New York City has lost possession in some difficult spots over these games too, out of the midfield and out of the back. But they're tasked with a pretty important role in building out and playing the way that Nick Cushing, his staff, and City Football Group teams want to play. And that's
agreed. But here's the thing, right? And yes, you make a really good point. I think that we've seen a number of turnovers by players that we don't expect it from, and more so than we've seen in the past. And that's a little bit troubling, and you hope that they're able to fix that as they go along and make better decisions and just make better passes. That's one. But 2, if you start looking at the numbers of possession and of passing, like I saw a preview today from Apple TV, MLS Season Pass, and Matt Doyle was talking about the number of passes that New York City has so far, and it is much less than in years past. Well, yes, of course it's going to be when you've played 6 games and 4 of them on the road. Everybody talks about the fact that it's very different to play on the road than it is to play at home. And although maybe in the general sense, it might be correct that maybe they aren't going to have as many passes, it's not going to be as bad as it is where they're 12th now, where they used to be top 5. We'll see. All of a sudden, let's look at those numbers in the next 2 games or in the next 5 games and see where they are, because it's going to change, because just in general, teams play differently at home. You have the ball more most of the time, and also games dictate circumstances. So like if New York City has a 2-goal lead, which would be the first time this season in any game, they may play further back and take some pressure, right? And play that way, which means that they're not going to have the ball. There's so many things that dictate these statistics that you just can't take these statistics and just make general statements about what's good and what's bad right now. I mean, what's bad? Team has not been creating as many chances maybe as the past, and the ones that they have been creating, they haven't been put away, and that's key because they have been there and they've been missing them, and so I think that's the most important thing that you can get out of what's been going on.
Yeah, and Freese, who just spoke, has certainly been the man of the match. I don't know if it's been official or what, but he's our man of the match over the last two matches at Cincinnati. And then again at Miami, 5 saves at Miami, including stoning Luis Suarez on 3 occasions. One of them was called by Roberto Abramowitz on the New York City FC network. Here it is.
Martínez parecía que se escapaba en el área, pero Callen le dio un puñetazo al balón. Y otra vez se salva la meta de Miami, que ahora buscan contragolpear. Viene por ese costado izquierdo Robert Taylor. Taylor ahora corta en diagonal hacia el centro. Toca el balón, le termina quedando algo atrás a Diego Gómez. Viene el centro para Martínez, remate de cabeza y gran parada de Matt Freese.
Which one was that, Roberto? Because I just I couldn't quite catch it.
That was Martinez's header that Freese saved. I had sent like 4 in, so this was the Martinez one.
Martinez.
So I mean, he was just so good, Matt Freese, and there's not much he could have done on the goal either. So
no, and so he, what he did was really instrumental in getting the road point. And the other instrumental side of things was Alonso Martinez getting his first start for New York City FC. He'd only played 53 minutes before this game against Miami, and he was playing a twin striker role with Monsef Bakrar. Well, they didn't have a good twin striker relationship. It just wasn't working, and Nick Cushing switched to 3 up front, 4 at the back from what was more of a 3-5-2 shape to start the game. And minutes later, Alonso Martinez did this.
Here comes New York City back again. The shot and the goal. And it is Alonso Martinez. And Nick Cushing has talked so often about what an incredible finisher he has been in training. It's one of the reasons he's gotten the opportunity. Well, New York City got free on the right. Martinez in the area. It was a pretty sharp angle, but he drilled it past Jake Colliner to give New York City the goal, and now a level standard in the 34th minute. And truly, Alonso Martinez, you'd have to classify him as a surprise starter. Yeah. And you're probably asking, well, where's Jovan Mijatovic? Well, he was on international duty in Serbia playing with the U19s. He played in 2 matches, but he is still in Serbia, has not returned as of yet. So that gave the opening to Martinez in this sort of a setup.
And that's what we always say about games of football. If you have the shirt in your possession, you're a starter, make sure nobody can rip it away from you. And Alonso Martinez, to me, has done that already with his goal. Yes, there was a mistake from Calendar, but you've got to put yourself in that position, and then you've got to hit the target. And he strikes it really well, hard and low, granted in a big space at the near post area. But credit Martinez. We talked, I think you said, Glenn, how few minutes of football he's played for NYCFC.
And he got his chance. And Jovan Mijatovic is still away as far as we know. So it's between Bakrar and Martinez, you would think, this weekend, or could you play them both again in a similar shape that the team ended last week against Miami, and obviously producing the goal? Boy, did they look more comfortable in a 4-3-3 than that 2 front.
They did. And by the way, give credit to Keaton Parks. That's like such a perfect pass that he put on it, right in his path, and he came in and he drilled it. So, kudos to Keaton for that. Kudos to Martinez, who's really fast too, by the way. And that was a really, really good finish. And look, he's going to get more chances. There's no doubt he's going to get more chances now. And you would have to feel that the leash on Bakrar, knowing that Martinez can actually do that, might be a little bit tighter. He's going to have to start producing. I mean, he missed the sitter to our right, which was in the second half. That was just terrible, really. Maybe it was a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe it's a little bit unfair. But he was alone 2 feet outside the 6, and he put that ball in orbit. When if he put it anywhere on goal, there was a really good chance that he could have scored. He knows it. He felt it. He dropped to his knees and knew that he blew the opportunity. And then when he was removed from the game a few minutes later, he was so down on himself. You could just see the way he left the field. I mean, he knew that he had to be replaced because he wasn't producing. I mean, the pressure's on him. Well, the pressure is really on.
Let's play this clip from Nick, and I want to hear more from you on Bakrar, but also Freese. I love the way that Nick described the performance by Freese. It was a strong performance, obviously, and this is a part of my pregame show with Nick coming up Saturday, 7:15, ahead of the Atlanta United game on the network. But here, and this is extended, but listen to each moment, because I think it's pretty interesting to hear from Nick on first Freese and then Bakrar.
After the game to the team, and I will say it continuously, if we're going to be a team that execute results, it's not about tactics. It's not about, the opposition. It's about how you play your best football. It's about how you get the best out of yourself. Yeah, of course, as head coach and as support staff, we play a part in that. But Matt Freese is, he did have a good performance, right? But he also is a goalkeeper, and his job is to keep the ball out the goal. So
I'm with you on that. I've said that to many a goalkeeper and goalkeeper coach.
And I understand. I don't underplay it. I think it's good to have people performing high, but it's the same on the other side. The players in the offensive half of the field have to put the ball in the goal. If you don't put the ball in the goal, then you're always going to have tight games, 1-goal games. Last season showed us that 1-goal games are susceptible to wins turning into ties and ties turning into losses. And we got to make sure that we put the ball in the goal on one end, and the likes of Thiago Martins, Burke, Reese, Strahinja, Matt Freese, those guys keep the ball out the goal. That is how simple the game is. The bit in the middle is how you achieve that.
So scoring the goals 4 in 6 matches, and your striker with not a goal yet, Monsef Bakrar. So I'm wondering about Bakrar, who again had a pretty good chance in front of goal, and we talked last week about he had a couple of chances that he probably should have finished on international duty. And so I think if we look over the short haul of these 6 games plus his time away, how much more do you – tolerate's not the right word, and I know you look at the positives and he's getting his chances, but he's not finishing. Alonso Martinez finished. Maybe you have other possibilities. What do you think?
As a coach, you have to support and you have to give opportunity, and you have to, keep putting Monsef in the position, and he has to keep getting himself runs and keep putting himself in the moment. But in the end, Jovan Mijatovic is breathing right down my neck, right? He wants to play in the team. He wants those chances. So that's the game. You have to give people opportunity, but ultimately the expectation and the demand is that you do your job, and we will support Monsef. We will keep putting him in the position, but at the same time, there's other guys that want to step up and want to take the opportunity. That's the game. Just like I, as head coach, have to get results, those players on the pitch have to put in performances, and together, we have to move forwards.
All right. I think you saw the Nick Cushing wardrobe right there at the end too. I am the worst. So I don't know what Stone Island is, but I guess that's what he wore. And Hudson River Blue did an interview. We saw Oliver out there yesterday and read through that today and discovered that he wore his Stone Island to please Alex Rando, the goalkeeper who was signed this year and plays mostly with NYCFC too, because I guess he kind of challenged Nick to, why don't you wear some Stone Island? So he did, just for
and it worked out, right? He got a good result in Fort Lauderdale. Let me go back to Bakrar because I think it's important. New York City bought a player who, in his last year in Croatia, had 8 goals in 38 games. They obviously saw something in him that said to them, we know that he can score more than just that, either by surrounding him with better players, by coaching him, or whatever else. They saw that they were going to be able to do something where he was going to be able to produce more. But so far, that hasn't happened. And maybe he is what he is. And there's going to be a limited amount of time that he's going to have to be able to show that he's a better player than what he's shown so far. Because if he continues to be an 8 in 38 guy, okay, that's not good enough. That's not good enough at that level. That's not good enough at this level. And if he can't cut it, then they're going to have to find somebody else. But, they take a chance and they see something. And, with any player that you bring, you're still taking a chance. I mean, you can look at the LA Galaxy, brought in Gerrard from Liverpool, is a great player. They took a chance and he didn't work out. He played horribly here. I mean, it doesn't matter the quality of the player. It just matters on the player. And we know he's working hard. We know it's not because he's lazy or he's partying the guy's doing anything and everything he can to get better. And that's what you want to see. And hopefully he's able to figure it out. Maybe something clicks and then he starts going on a run and he starts going. It reminds me maybe like hopefully what happened with Brenner. Remember Brenner in Cincinnati? He had a really hard time for a while. And then all of a sudden he figured it out. And then it was hat tricks galore. And then he finally got sold back to Brazil. So here's what you're hoping that happens with Bakrar. But if it doesn't happen soon, then you got to start. You have to start making changes because it's unacceptable at this level right now.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's the question. I mean, how much longer do you accept it? And Brenner, I remember speaking to Pat Noonan for my Sirius XM show right in the midst of all that, and he said we just keep working with him, and trying, and it really mimics what Nick Cushing has said about Bakrar. He's changed his hair a little bit. It's a little higher and stiffer. I don't know if you noticed. So yes. What I'm thinking is that extra weight might get him to lean over a little bit more. So he's over the ball when he tries to finish, because he's missed a couple over the bar because he's leaning back. I mean, that might be too simplistic a way to look at it, because you could still lean back and get over the ball and score. It's your knee over the ball, not if you're leaning back, but your knee goes over the ball a little bit easier if your body weight is in a forward position. So
yes,
we'll see. And I had clipped something that I sent to you guys comparing the Giakoumakis goal of a week ago, half volley, coming in at a little different angle, but it was coming from the left. It was the same technique. He puts it in the back of the net. He's got 5 goals, won't play against New York City, which, is somewhat of a blessing for New York City in this one. And,
bone bruise.
Bone bruise. And and then Bakrar, putting this as you described it, in orbit. And I don't think there's, much other way. And if someone was watching this as opposed to just listening, they just saw the miss as well. So, hey, look, Nick made it sound like he's going to get another chance. And we'll just have to wait and see when the 11 are announced a little bit over an hour before kickoff to see what we're going to do with that. Suarez, by the way, who scored the goal and got stuffed by Freese on several occasions, was named the Player of the Month at MLS, which probably not a shock. No. I have to say that's who I voted for, and I think he deserves it based on his performances for Miami. What else do I want to say here? What about Atlanta? We know Giakoumakis. I think that's a big announcement. He's not going to play.
Right.
And Tiare, a guy that they got last summer, who scored twice in their last match after Giakoumakis came out. So he's an interesting striker as well, somebody to deal with. So it's a major loss, but you also got a guy that just coming off a 2-goal performance.
He's not the only one who's out. Sunday Silva is out. And between Giakoumakis and Silva, I mean, they've scored a lot, 5 goals, 3 assists between both of them. It's interesting. Now, Atlanta has a little bit of New York City in them, okay? Play great at home, can't do a damn thing on the road. Yeah. And so now they come up against New York City. And, there's a couple of interesting stats that came out of this that I was looking at. First of all, New York City's unbeaten in 8 straight against Atlanta, right? 4 wins and 4 ties. But New York City, during the regular season, has scored goals in every single game against Atlanta United. The only time they didn't score was a 1-0 loss in the playoffs in 2018 when Atlanta United won the championship, and that was at Yankee Stadium. They beat New York City 1-0 at Yankee Stadium, and then they beat them 3-1.
That's back when there was 2 legs, and MLS went on with Tata Martino. Pretty interesting. The guy who coached the game last week was the guy who led Atlanta to their only MLS Cup. And to play off your point on the road or home, Thiago Almada, 12 of his last 14 goals scored were at Mercedes-Benz. Look at I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they really do thrive on home cooking. So let's see if that continues, right? That they play well at home, but don't play well on the road.
And there was another stat that came out of that game. I think Apple had it, that their crossing accuracy from the right, and that's Brooks Lennon's side, so that's where you have to be really careful, is like 54%, and it's just 43%, overall. So obviously, a lot of their accurate service is coming from the right side, or dangerous service is coming from the right. I know you also showed me a heat map where there was a lot going on the left.
Oh, yes.
Eventually that is to get it to the right. I mean, if you look, I went back and looked at that too. It's they get the ball on the left, and they can swing it to the right, and then Brooks Lennon likes to get in. So there you go.
In their last game, and look, this might be team specific, right? That was a strategy that they had against Chicago. They went down the left side 60% of the time. That left 40% for the other 2/3 of the field. I mean, that's an amazing statistic. That's a lot on one side. Either they saw something there, or they just seem to be playing better on that side, and that's why they went there. So, we'll see what New York City winds up doing, having this information, because obviously they do. It's not, it wasn't a secret or anything like that. They watch the games and scout it better than we do.
The final thing on Giakoumakis too, Roberto, he had played a role in 11 of the last 14 goals for Atlanta United. So just in terms of his absence and what it might mean, it's huge. It really is huge.
And here's something about him that I really liked, okay? Guy came into Atlanta and said, I want number 7. Now, number 7 was Joseph Martinez's number. Right, Joseph Martinez was fantastic for them. Helped them win a championship, won scoring titles, did everything right before injuries really decimated his career. Right? He says, "I want his number," and he basically and he asked for it, and he put all that pressure on himself, saying, "All right, yeah, I'm going to take the number of your best player. I want that, and I'm going to prove I can do just as well." Now the guy's been unbelievable for them. I mean, he's been everything that's been advertised. So New York City gets a huge break by the fact that he's not playing in Citi Field this Saturday.
Yeah, everybody loves Joseph Martinez down there, probably except for Gonzalo Pineda. It didn't go very well between those two. The old dumping the food table incident post game and the resulting suspensions and things like that. But nonetheless, Joseph Martinez. Do they have a statue of him? Don't they have something of him somewhere down there? Or am I imagining that?
I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe somebody will chime in and let us know.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't put that out there unless I really know. LA Galaxy, LAFC, just to stay on MLS for a minute. You've got Galaxy on top of the Supporters Shield standings against a team that's been very good the last 2 years, LAFC. Also El Tráfico coming up this week.
At the same time as our game, which does not make me happy. What's the point of having California 3 hours different if they're going to play it on at prime time, Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time? But I mean, the Galaxy have been great. I mean, and they've been fun to watch too. I mean, I've watched a few of their games. I've gotten a chance, and they've been a hell of a lot of fun. And they've got a couple of new players there who have really, really done very, very well. Joseph Basil from Ghana has been fantastic. He already's got 2 goals, 2 assists, and he loves to take people on. And then Gabriel Peck from Brazil, he's only played 5 games so far. He's got a goal and an assist. They've been bringing him up slowly because he I forgot if he was injured or not, but I know I could fill in the blank there.
Okay. He arrived during preseason, during the tail end of preseason, because he was supposed to maybe make an appearance at Coachella Invitational, but he didn't get there on time. So it's more of he just arrived late. It's not an injury situation.
Okay.
And then you've got really well. And when I talked to Greg Vanny out at Coachella, they were a little uncertain about the resiliency, the consistency of Dejan Joveljic. Well, what has he got? 5 goals?
5 goals and an assist. He's top of the board along with several others in Major League Soccer with goals scored. Look, every time he got a chance, behind Chicharito, he did very well.
No, the correction. Lewis Morgan has 6 goals.
Oh, he does. True.
Yeah. So, and he tied. Who was it? Brian McBride? He tied somebody for most goals in the month of March. I think it was McBride, and that's a million years ago for Columbus.
Yeah,
or the late 90s anyway. So Lewis Morgan, you're one of your favorite players. We might as well give him a shout out because you like him so much. And he's with the Red Bulls, and we got a derby coming up in May, but we're not going to. We had another derby, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's kick it around, Roberto. Well, how about it? The U.S. Open Cup and New York City FC 2 defeating New York Red Bulls 2. And your very own Roberto Abramowitz was at the game. So, I was going to go, and then a couple of things happened. And getting out to Belson for me from Jersey, sometimes it's really a pain in the neck, and it was going to be tight. And then the weather
for anybody.
The weather, So, but
the weather was really bad.
Yeah,
the weather was really. It was just. Not only was it just constantly raining, it was coming down at times in sheets. It was raining sideways. There wasn't really too much of a moment where the weather wasn't bad. But the positive side of that was the field was wet, so they didn't have to bring in a fire truck or something like that to wet down the field.
And
the Ronnie Dyla days.
Sometimes artificial surfaces, there's an advantage, and on a night like that, maybe it worked to an advantage.
Well, it was an advantage till it wasn't, because the first goal skipped by Tomas Romero, who was the goalie for New York City, and that was just a really, really tough goal for him.
Well, you got to be more specific. It went through the 5-hole, man, and
yes, it did.
No matter what the conditions are, that's pretty inexcusable. But boy, he more than made up for it.
He really did. Yeah, he really did. Now let's remember. I mean, he's been the starting goalkeeper also for the El Salvadorian national team. So I mean, he's supposed to be a pretty good goaltender. Although I know that in Toronto he had his struggles as well. He's come to New York City. He's practiced very, very well. And after that, he made that gaffe that cost him a goal. He was excellent, including stopping a penalty kick. Yeah. So at a critical moment, too, because New York City went down 1-0, came back, went up 3-1, seemed to have everything in control. The Red Bulls came out of the second half storming, if I may, considering that it's St. John's and the fact that it was raining. That's a double, by the way. See, because they're the Red Storm and it was raining. See, that's a double. And
now you have to come up with something for on top of a parking garage. I don't know what you could do there. But
I don't know. But they got a goal, made it 3-2, kept the pressure on, penalty kick, and then Romero makes a great save on the penalty kick. And as he said after the game when we spoke to him, that basically, everybody stutter steps right now. And that's what he was expecting, and then he was able to wait it out and then go and make the read and make the save, which is what he did. And then he made a couple of other really, really good saves. And finally, New York City was able to get another penalty kick for themselves. And this time, Jimenez scored it. Not a problem. Jimenez had the hat trick for New York City. And so they won 4-2 and advanced now. And they're going to be playing the Hartford Athletic up in beautiful downtown Hartford, 2 hours from New York City by car.
It was Julian Hall whose penalty was saved by Tomas Romero. And Hall made the headlines when, because of the child labor laws, was unable to play until a 2 p.m. game for the New York Red Bulls about a week ago. And then he turned 16, so now everything's cool. And then Malachi Jones, he scored his first pro goal.
He did. It was a really nice play, too. I didn't even think he had a chance. It was like sort of a broken play. They get the ball back, and then it was a beautiful filtered ball. And Malachi, boy, he's got speed, too. And he got to that ball in front of the defender. And as the goalkeeper is coming out, he just chipped it. It was such a lovely goal. I really, really was.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm not picking more up. I'm picking on Monsef Bakrar anymore. But the one goal he should have had as a striker in the professional game was against the former Vancouver keeper, whose name always escapes me. Help me out here, Roberto.
I'm trying to. I tell you, was it this year?
French guy. Anyway, I think he's French.
Crepeau.
Anyway, so
it wasn't Crepeau.
Bakrar, Crepeau.
He was with Vancouver. I remember him with Montreal.
Oh, maybe
was
that's
Vancouver.
No, he was with Vancouver. So anyway, he's bearing in on the Bakrar. Just let me tee this up now that we have the name. Bakrar on the left side at the exact same angle as Malachi Jones. Crepeau went down early, and Bakrar hit it right into his body as he was prone on the ground. Malachi Jones, I'm telling you, with just as much pressure, probably less defensive pressure on Bakrar than it was on Jones in this instance, lifts the ball over the prone keeper. That's a finish. That's a professional finish, and I think you're right. He should be commended for a lot of different parts of that goal. I thought he was naive in some of his shot selection throughout the game. I think Malachi Jones still has a lot of seasoning before he could be considered to be a regular or somebody you're going to count on in a big spot. But he probably should be given a chance knowing that he can finish like that. And that's a exact situation that Bakrar did not. And that is something that and I didn't even see the chip until we saw some of those videos from the crowd from behind. You couldn't really tell on the on the television replay because of the the rain and the lights and the glare. And
the lighting was horrific at St. John's. It really was. The lighting was horrific.
But
they got 1,000 lights there, and it still seemed dark.
All right. Now, that's a great story because we covered New York City and NYCFC 2 in the U.S. Open Cup and not the first team. And really the calamity around that with Major League Soccer is almost immeasurable. However, it's giving these boys a chance. They're feeling like they've got these important games. So I'm very happy for them and Matt Pilkington, to be able to have a chance to coach in these games too. But this club, El Farolito. So I'm going to put up James Knowlton. He's a friend of the program, follows both of us, Roberto, and a lot of people reacted to this, but I thought let's put up his tweet. And this El Farolito, the Burrito Boys, they take their name from a Mexican restaurant, and they beat Jermaine Jones' team, Central Valley Fuego, a USL League One side, for another U.S. Open upset by this. What I don't even remember what NPSL, or are they League Two? I think they're.
I have no idea, but I will tell you this though. If you start going down those names, okay, so like John Rojas, who's a friend of the program, a friend of ours, gave us the full breakdown of who El Farolito is, and oh my God, I mean, there are pros from everywhere.
Well, John is going to do that.
Colombian players.
Colombia. Well, that's why John.
A couple of Mexican players, a few American players. There's a player from Necaxa there from Mexico. There's like a lot of first division professional players from Colombia who now live here, I guess. And boy, these are the stories you love. These are the stories you love.
Why can't I? Let's see. They are. They're NPSL, National Professional Soccer League. Okay, and of course John Rojas wrote all that because most of those players were Colombian. Of course he was going to share that with us. But I watched a little of the game. It was pretty fun to watch those boys running around. Some of them not in great shape, but it reminds me of when I coached at Rutgers. New Brunswick has a huge Mexican community, and I used to coach this camp every summer, and on this big Cook campus, we had these fields all over the place. And in the middle of the day when we went inside for lunch, and then there was like a 2-hour break in between the morning session and the afternoon session. And these Mexican guys would come out of the woodwork and just play pickup. And every now and then I would wander out and I try to kick it around with them or whatever it might be. But the one thing I noticed is like, man, these guys are good. None of them were any kind of shape. But boy, could they play! And I couldn't play with them. I was like, it was crazy. And
absolutely,
that's what I think of when I watch some of these games. Is like You know, and you know what else we did when I was coaching at Rutgers? We would, and we were indoors. We'd always make a coach's team to play against anybody on the team, and we won every time. And the reason we won is because our noggins were smarter. We don't run as much because we're moving the ball properly and things. And I think about that too. You know, it's just because a guy's a little older and maybe not in quite as good shape, he's going to be smarter than that guy on the other side that might be 19 years old and is running around like, ah. So I have a great appreciation for the older generation. Des Moines didn't get it done. You know, Sasha and his squad did not get it done. Union Omaha, coached by my friend Dominic Cassiato, who used to be the coach of the Brooklyn Italians. He guides Union Omaha. By the way, keep that name in mind, Roberto. We're going to go back and play this part of the show one day when Dominic gets hired to be an MLS head coach. Okay, we'll play that. We'll play that.
That's awesome. I'd love to see it.
He's a fantastic coach. You know, we've got also New York City FC, the U17s at the GA Cup got to the knockout round, Roberto, but they lost yesterday.
I was wondering what happened. They played PSV,
so PSV advanced, but getting to the knockout stage, you know, with the likes of Carrizo and Baera and Jonathan Shore and Ariave.
Yeah.
All the guys that played in the opening U.S. Open Cup match. So we'll see. They'll be back. So it'll be interesting to see how this roster looks for this Hartford game.
Yeah, I'll have to speak to Carrizo's dad and see what he has to say about how that game went. And he said it was funny because the first game that they played, and I think they lost 1-0 to a team from Croatia, I think it was. He says that NYCFC was New York City FC was so much superior to them, but they got like an early goal and they just retreated, and it was just like they parked two buses, not one, and it was really, really hard to break them down. Especially, says, because the fields are smaller and it's less time. They're 30-minute halves, and a lot of the fields aren't 120 by 75. So I don't know what size fields they're playing, and he says that it just gave a larger advantage to teams playing defensively.
Yeah. MLS Next Pro. So that's a lot of these players we've been talking about play for that side. And obviously the NYCFC 2 team. I wanted to ask you about this, Roberto, because we saw an announcement midweek last week that the MLS Next Pro, was it a GA Cup? I can't remember the event, but AI was going to do the plus two other languages, Spanish plus two other languages. It was going to be an artificial intelligence play-by-play call. I know you heard some of it. What did you think?
I mean, I hate it. I'll tell you that right now. And I'll tell you why I hate it. Okay, so English got a regular live commentator.
As it should be.
And then they basically took whatever he said, and then it got translated. The technology is fantastic. The technology is absolutely fabulous. I get that. But it didn't sound right. I mean, the Spanish was great as far as the quality of the Spanish. It sounded okay that way. But, it sounded weird. It sounded very, very odd about when to get excited, when not to, and those sort of things. And then, like, one part was regular speed, and then another part got speeded up. But it
seemed like the effects were sometimes there, and sometimes I listened to like 10 minutes because I don't understand Spanish, and I didn't know that they took the English and just turned it around, and that doesn't always work. But you're saying that the translation in the call was pretty good.
I guess as far as that did. I mean, that's what I had heard the way it was supposed to work. So if I'm wrong, let somebody correct me, please.
That makes sense, actually. I mean, it makes
sense. But I mean, I obviously don't like it. I mean, it's bad for people in my industry, because if they feel, I mean, already in America, we feel that everything has to be good in English and it has to be in Spanish. And what I mean by that, it doesn't have to be great quality. As long as you've serviced it in their language, then it doesn't matter if it's good or not. At least you did that, right? And that's not not everybody does that, but too many people do that. And it's horrific. Hence, they use Google Translate and they use things like that. And always a Hispanic consumer gets a much lower quality product than people who speak English. And that's not right. And so if they're going to wind up using this to replace people and say, well, we don't need to hire a Spanish announcer because we can do it with AI. We don't need to hire a French announcer because we can do it with AI or whatever else, then, you know, they're going to get the people who are listening are going to get a much inferior product. And but, you know, I guess teams are going to find ways to save money. So, no, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Do it with live professional announcers that are good.
No, I'm not in favor of it either. And point well taken, but I think you should say our profession because they could just as easily do it in English in the future as they do it in Spanish. So
yeah, no, of course. I mean, they could, you know, take a team from, they can take like a Mexican broadcast on television on TUDN and do it backwards in English. So yeah,
you know what I really don't like about taking the English and then just translating to Spanish. What if the English person is poor? What if they're not giving maybe they're not really good at what they're doing? Now you're getting getting a poor Spanish, a poor Turkish, or whatever the other languages that they were putting it in.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely
crazy. U.S. soccer referees Tori Penso, Brooke Mayo, and Catherine Nesbitt, along with Canadian Drew Fisher, are all going to work the Olympics in France, which was, I think, very good news for our referees. I promised last week the Athletic Anonymous survey. They did part 1, which we went over last week. They hadn't put out part 2 yet. And this is the anonymous survey of sporting executives. And I thought we should get into it a little bit more. Roberto, you love it.
Let's go. I did read it. So,
all right. So, Apple TV. Okay. And it always goes back to it seems like every comment, maybe it's every comment that I put down on my paperwork. It goes back to Messi and Miami. But Apple TV, one executive said, honestly, I'd like to see less Messi. Again, this is Apple TV. When we open season pass, he's all you effing see. The people who want to find him will find him. And then another executive said that the broadcasts have a state media feel. Wow, that was like, but that's where I always say, when you're not syncing up our Spanish or our English with the video on Apple, I don't quite get it. And I'm not going to go as far as saying it's got a state media feel, but it doesn't have a hometown feel because those particular announcers, many of whom are our friends, Roberto, it's nothing against them. It's like I do understand to a point because when you have to sync from the audio to the video, it's a little work involved. But I think for the 2 hours that you listen to us instead of the Apple gang, I think you get more out of it.
Let me just say this, okay? I don't know what was behind the statement, but I think it had more to do with maybe, and this is maybe just my interpretation, of a lack of criticism in some way, and that's probably more on the English than on the Spanish. But the broadcast shouldn't have a hometown feel for Apple TV. They shouldn't. I mean, that's exactly what they're trying to get away from. They're supposed to have a national feel, that every game is a national game. That's what they want, and that's what it should be. It should be that 100%. It shouldn't have a home. That's why you have the radio to be able. Now, originally, they were supposed to have hometown and away radio in English, hometown and away radio in Spanish. That was what they had originally sought to do and what they had announced. And then when it came down to it, they figured out that for whatever reason, they were just going to do home English radio, and that was it. So no Spanish radio and no away radio. So if you wanted to listen to your guys, now you got to do what you're suggesting, which is, put our broadcast on, pause it for somewhere between 60 and 90 seconds until the video catches up, because we're about 5 to 7 seconds behind live action. They're about 90 seconds behind live action, somewhere in that vicinity. So you've got to literally pause us on TuneIn, and then wherever you are, and then go from there.
No, it's not. We know it's not. We know it's not easy. And what Roberto said, and I'll just promote it briefly. But since we are home, at Citi Field. You can use the drop-down portion of the app on Apple TV to listen to myself and Matty Lawrence. And but Roberto's point is certainly important to make about the Spanish. And Roberto, I did hear something that in December there were intentions to do what you said initially there, but for whatever reason it didn't follow through. So hopefully, as the years progress, it's a 10-year contract, and whatever the reasons are, hopefully in 2025, it's a complete package.
Hopefully by this season. I mean, you don't have to wait till the end of the season to make changes. There's no reason for that. They can do them now if they can. Figure out what the technical issues are and do it. I mean, for people like us, okay, we're on the road for every single game. We're home every single game.
I know.
It's easy to run a wire into your mixer. It's easy to run a wire into my mixer and for them to be able to have it.
Well, just
we're
so
available.
I've already checked with MLS about the fact that we are on the road. So there was one time where Chicago didn't have home radio. We went to Chicago. That was last year. So there was no drop down available because they would not take our feed because we were the road team, and that would break from their consistency. They said, well, we're only taking the hometown broadcast. I said, well, they don't have one. So why wouldn't you? So again, I tend to try to stray away from being too critical because we don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes and what's curtailing the progress of this. But here's I want to give an example. All right. Tyler Terrence and Kendra did the game at Miami. All right. And I'm just going to speak for myself and Matty Lawrence. And you don't really even have to add on to this, Roberto. If you want to, you can. But I listened back to their call of the Suarez goal. And then I listened back to myself and Matty. I knew what we had said, but I wanted to listen to it back. And they barely, first of all, there were two replays. And when Sands was fouled by Luis Suarez. And the thing I said, and I put it up on social media, is that Matty Lawrence does not get these things wrong. And Roberto, Matty Lawrence is not a homer. He's great. He's as critical of New York City as he is of anyone. And so he's not a homer. So, and he's never wrong with these things, right? He's played, how about 16 professional seasons against some of the best players in the world over in England. So I'm just saying he doesn't get these things wrong. They barely Kendra said one thing. Well, there's maybe there was a foul, maybe there was a push, and that was it. They dropped it. They didn't have any replays supporting it. Suarez fouled Sands. And to go back to the state media side of this thing, honestly, if you're doing a really, really if you're doing your job, you're going to talk about that play a little bit more. That's my opinion. But if it's Suarez in Inter Miami, maybe is the producer shouting in here, get away from it? Are they told anything, or do they just feel the pressure like a referee feels the pressure to make sure that Busquets gets all the calls because he's officiating most of the game himself? I don't know. I don't know the answer to all those questions. Next time I see Tyler, I'm going to ask him because they didn't say a word about it. We went on pretty long time about it. And the fact that James Sands was appealing that vociferously, not even mentioned on the television broadcast, no pictures, right? When do you not see a cutaway to a picture to a player arguing with a referee? When do you not see that? Especially as extensive as it was with Sands. So I'm suspect of it, and that's the idea where just call the game, man. And not just Tyler and Kendra. I'm just saying call everything, the whole value of it. Because, and, I know Kevin Stott didn't take it to – the referee didn't go to the monitor either, But like I said, so that's my piece on that. As far as, again, getting the fair commentary, in my mind, listening to the radio as opposed to maybe the television broadcast.
Well, just one thing. I mean, I didn't hear their broadcast, so because obviously I was doing the game and I haven't listened. I haven't watched the game back, so I don't know, what they said or how they said it. And it could be a production thing more than a them thing. We don't know that either because, yes, they do have producers and, they may, and they decide what replays are going to run and what not run. But as far as as far as the referee going to the monitor there's no, he couldn't have. There's no, it's not one of the 4 things that that they can review. So he can't review that.
Sure you can. It's a goal. A goal was scored and a foul was committed.
No. The goal was scored on the free kick. The foul was before the free kick.
Pardon? No, I'm talking about.
Which one are we talking about then?
We're talking about Suarez foul on Sands on a goal that he scored. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you meant before. Okay. I'm sorry.
No. Oh my God, that was 5 minutes of my time, man. I'm getting older, Roberto. I can't be wasting my 5 minutes. But that's
Oh, you mean on the goal itself? Okay, I see that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll go back and listen. And Tyler and Kendra, love you. And it's nothing against them. It's just I just don't know what's going on sometimes. And you're suspicious because it's Suarez, and you're suspicious because it's Miami. And is that legitimate suspicion? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just a jerky boy.
Don't buy into all the everybody's trying to favor Inter Miami hype. I don't see it.
Okay. Roster flexibility from the survey of 30 sporting executives in MLS anonymously. Let's see. I think having Apple involved is a good thing. They're still on Apple because they'll keep pushing the league to evolve, and you can do that by spending more money or spending differently. Having that extra voice pushing this will be helpful. Then under the
100% there, because they need more marketable and better players to be able to sell their product. So yeah, they have a 10-year investment that's worth $2.5 billion. Yeah, they have a major interest in the league spending more money and bringing more players like Messi and Suarez and all those guys, and maybe even younger, better players, not just guys who are like in their mid to late 30s. So yes.
Another survey question: do teams cheat in MLS? See, these are the ones I love.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
One executive.
That's the old NASCAR one.
Yes, teams do break rules. No, I don't really want to expand on it. Other than that, clearly some teams are able to operate in gray areas. That falls on the league office. And then another person in regard to Miami said, quote, their mathematics intelligence must be incredible. So anyway, we'll leave that. But
give Chris Henderson some kudos. He's rebuilt that team, and Tata Martino keeps on finding guys in Argentina and in that area that are young and that can help. By the way, they're the 4th or 5th youngest team in MLS. And when you consider the fact of who they have that you think about all the time, and all those guys are in their 30s, and then you look at the fact that they're the 4th youngest team in MLS, wow. By the way, the 2 youngest teams in MLS, both in New York.
When Miami has all their regular players healthy and ready to go, they start six players over the age of 30. So I'm just pointing, 4th youngest, whatever. I'm just saying the people they're counting on right now are not all the young players. Although that Diego Rossi is quite a player. Got to like him. I like
Kremaski's coming back. He played 25 minutes for their 2 team, getting back into shape. Maybe we'll get a chance to see him midweek against Monterrey. By the way, there's a big controversy in that game. It seemed there's reports that Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets, and maybe more went after the referees after the game, and then that there was also pushing and shoving with some of the Monterrey players and some of the Monterrey executives. That didn't end very well. They were very upset at Tano Ortiz, who's a coach from Monterrey, who had basically insinuated that what you said, Glenn, that Miami gets all the calls and that they're getting help by the referee, except that, he's a coach. And they took real exception to that, and they were very unhappy. And then, of course, Ruiz got 2 yellow cards. It almost seemed like he got 3, but it was only 2. And he got them in quick succession, and he got himself kicked out of the game, and that turned the game, because once he went out of the game, they turned a 1-0 deficit into a 2-1 win. And I always thought after that first red card and the way Ruiz was playing, that Tata Martino made a mistake. He should have pulled him out of the game because it looked like he was really just like playing out of his head and that something bad was going to happen. And sure enough, it did. And that wound up costing them the game. Now they got to go to Monterrey, try to win there. Hopefully for Inter Miami, Messi is going to play. We'll see how long, if he does. I wouldn't expect him to start. Maybe he does a cameo if he's ready. Hopefully he is, because, you know, you want to see Messi play, and I'm sure everybody in Monterrey wants to see Messi play. But all the MLS teams are in real trouble. Right now, they're favorites to get all eliminated by all three teams being eliminated in the quarterfinals. There'll be no American teams in the semifinals, the way things are going. Because
I feel like I saw a statistic that said regarding the American teams, MLS teams, that no team had ever advanced past this round that lost the first leg. I mean, so now Columbus was 1-1. So
against Tigres, and they're played again without Cucho Hernandez. Cucho Hernandez seems to, based on other reports that we've seen, seems to have gotten himself into trouble with Wilfred Nancy by being upset about being taken out of a game. It wasn't even Nancy who took him out because he had been red carded, and so his assistant was on running the team, took Cucho off the field. Didn't sit right with Cucho. I guess he might have acted inappropriately because they haven't said anything, but that seems to be where this is going. And he's been out of the 20, he's no longer 18, for the past 2 games, including that. And now they've got to go to Monterrey to play Tigres at El Volcán, which is not an easy place to play. And who knows if Cucho is either going to play this weekend or going to play next midweek when the next games are on. So we'll see what happens there. That's a 1-1 tie right now. And then America absolutely smoked the New England Revolution. It was 4-0. It could have been a lot more than that. The American teams just can't play with the top Mexican teams. I mean, I'm sorry. They just can't play. And there are reasons for it. They're able to spend a hell of a lot more money than MLS teams are allowed to spend.
All right.
Cheap owners in the league don't want to spend money. They still have a lot of influence. And so American teams are going to get smoked on these places, on these games more times than not.
Let's not dig into that. That's an hour-long show to talk about budget again.
Yeah, but we got to at least mention this. This isn't going to change until the cheap owners in this league start losing influence, and more people who want to spend money and bring better players in and want to compete outside of their little bubble, or the fact that team owners are more interested in the team than in the real estate that they're able to get because they own a team, then maybe, we'll have better results. But if it's all about money and being able to make all these great real estate deals and for them to get rich, and MLS is a prop for that, then, it's going to, and they can influence the rest of the league, then, it's going to be terrible. This is going to continue to happen. U.S. soccer's already proven that on a national team level, they are far superior to Mexico and expanding that superiority. Yet on team levels, they can't compete because Mexican teams, the top teams, can spend a hell of a lot more money than the American teams can. And as long as they're able to do that and bring in higher quality internationals, they're going to continue to be able to run roughshod over American teams, who every so often are going to be able to get one like Seattle did over Pumas. But that's 1 in 18 years.
Yeah, well, that's the way soccer is. You can occasionally come up with the upset like that. All right, well, that's and that one story you told about Miami and the Monterrey coach taking exception, or they're taking exception to his claim that they get all the calls. It immediately reminded me. I couldn't interject though. You that was good, man. Roberto, you were just boom, 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 boom. I couldn't get in there because I wanted to remind you of Jesse Marsh saying that Pirlo, Lampard, and Villa get all the calls. He said that midweek before a derby game. And Patrick Vieira at the end of that game got red carded because he was just so fueled and upset with Jesse's midweek comments, and he just couldn't take it. Jesse got under his skin, as he tends to do, whether it's on or off the field, apparently, Jesse Marsh.
Yeah.
or in the broadcast.
Me, when people from Mexico, Glenn, tell me that this is a retirement league and nobody really cares and they only care about the money, they have no idea what they're talking about. We see it in practice, how players are fighting for position, are fighting for minutes, are fighting for their livelihoods. We see the passion that goes into Jesse Marsh making those comments, Patrick Vieira getting red carded. All these things happen because you care. If you didn't care, you'd be sitting there and maybe you'd be hiding a margarita behind the bench someplace, in a little flask, and you're just enjoying the game and you're doing that. That's not the case. Everybody cares. Everybody wants to become better. Everybody wants to, play with pride because they're here because they're competitors. They want to win. They're not just, guys who are just doing it just for the cash. I mean, it happens every so often, but that's the absolute minority. The majority in all of this is guys want to compete, want to win. And it doesn't matter what, they'll beat their mothers playing marbles if they have to, and they won't feel bad about it for a second. They'll beat their 2-year-old daughters playing that way because that's what fuels them. That's who they are. And that's what's going, that's what they want to do. They want to play. They want to compete. They can't stand losing. And I mean, it. You've been with competitors like that. You were a competitor too. You were a coach. When did you ever want to lose or didn't care about a game?
No, I've said all levels. It's there's no question. Well, let's close. I want to close with Caitlin Clark. Not Caitlin Clark, the basketball player necessarily. Although, don't Sammy, don't put this graphic up yet. Let me tell this part of the story first. So, Roberto, I have not seen this woman play basketball very often, but I made a point to watch the Iowa LSU match. And I'm going to make a point to watch Iowa UConn tonight. And she's the attraction because I've never seen, I don't think I've seen a man or a woman take a 40-foot field goal on purpose and make half of them. I mean, she'll pull up from these incredible distances. Hold on. What do you want to say?
Steph Curry does it all the time, and it's absurd because he makes them.
Okay.
I just wanted to interject that. But, I mean, it's very, very rare. It's ridiculously rare. That Dame Lillard every so often, too.
Yeah, forget
that. But not like, she's been amazing.
Let me tell my story.
Go.
When I was watching her the other night, I said to myself, I wonder if she played soccer. So I Google it. And I get to an article from the Des Moines Register. It was, it might have been 2 years old, or maybe it was last. No, it was February of this year. Excuse me, February of this year. And her father, Caitlin Clark's father, is named Brent. And here are a couple of quotes from him regarding her soccer career. She played 4 years in high school, played club ball locally in Iowa. And her father said, quite frankly, and I'm not trying to brag about it. Apparently, he's not a bragger. It's not the kind of guy he is. But I think she probably could have been the same sort of talent in soccer that she is in basketball. She could have been on USA junior national type teams. And then he went on to say he thinks that her anticipation, creativity, physicality, and passing angles all stem from soccer. Then there was a quote from her after a December home win for Iowa in basketball. And it was about her elite passing. So she said, and I love this as a coaching point, I don't go into the gym and just chuck passes against the wall. I don't do that. You get that from playing basketball. That's how you learn. And then she said, I read angles. And I think soccer helped me a lot in reading angles and understanding angles. So how about that? The role of soccer in the success of Caitlin Clark.
That's great. I saw something, I think it was yesterday, and it was an interview that she did. It might have been with Sue Bird. I think it was with Sue Bird. And she was talking about how as she was growing up, she was pissed at her dad. And she was pissed at her dad because when she was a little kid, and she had, I think, 2 older brothers, and they're all taking threes, and she wanted to take threes. And he would not allow her to take 1 3. He would not allow it. And he said that it would just ruin your mechanics. And he continued to force her to make sure that she made smaller shots closer to the basket, because that would help her mechanics and it wouldn't make her do things that were unnatural to her or that were wrong. And then obviously as she grew up, she was able to go and got stronger. She was able to go further back and now, be able to hit 40 footers, as you say. But it's all because of the fact that her mechanics were correct from the beginning. I would guess, and you're an avid golfer, that has to do, something possibly with golf as well, right? That no matter how you're hitting a ball, right? If the mechanics are the same, it just depends really on the club, and then maybe obviously on the level of the swing that you want to do if you really want to hit it really, really hard and far. But for the most part, the mechanics are pretty much the same. Would I be right on that?
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to do in basketball, to make sure that her mechanics were always sound, no matter where the shot was from, especially at an early age, that she didn't do one thing for a three that she wouldn't do, with a side jumper 5 feet from the basket. That it would always be the exact same motion, just obviously the power behind it.
Pretty interesting. Well, the part of this soccer story was, I think she was 8 or 9 years old playing soccer, and she recognized, and she could strike a ball. Apparently one of her, she was a striker. She was a forward. She scored goals, and she could strike a ball just purely. Again, maybe that technique thing. Athletes are athletes too sometimes, right? They could play. We know a lot of athletes that could have been, LeBron James could have been a great center back or a goalkeeper, I'm sure, in soccer. But she asked her coach, she said, "Can you score directly from a kickoff?" And the coach said, "Yeah." So she looked up and she saw, the goalkeeper was a little off her line. This is 8 or 9 years old, and she just freaking whacked it into the goal.
It doesn't surprise me. We've had some great two-sport athletes between Bo Jackson. He's one. Deion Sanders, right? Great. Michael Jordan actually played two sports, although he was great at one, not great at the other. He was great at basketball, not so much at baseball.
His lifetime batting average, I think, is 167. But go ahead.
Yeah, but Bo Jackson was great at both, and Deion Sanders was great at both. Dave DeBusschere, ex-Knick, was a pitcher for the Chicago White Sox as well. Danny Ainge was a great two-sport player, baseball and basketball. There's a lot of guys who can do it. Who is it? John Elway was a two-sport player. He could have played for the Yankees, actually used the Yankees to be able to not get a contract in Baltimore and go and play in Denver. So there's a lot of guys who can play two-sport. Charlie Ward
let's get to a soccer guy, Tony Meola.
Tony tried to kick for the Jets. He actually kicked in preseason.
No. He was drafted by the New York Yankees. He was a baseball player.
He was too? All right.
Yeah.
Good for Tony.
Drafted by the Yankees and chose soccer. So there you go.
Yeah, there's quite a few guys that would have done that too. So, there's a lot of great two-sport, maybe even more athletes had they gotten the chance.
Well, let's go. The final thing, throw this graphic up now, Sammy. This was from Front Office Sports. And I love this rundown, Roberto. Check this out. The Iowa LSU game. So 12.3 million people watched it, which is more than every women's college basketball game ever, every ESPN college basketball game, men or women ever, every Major League Baseball game last year, every NHL game last year, every Major League Soccer game last year, every NBA game last year except one. They didn't name the one. And it's the Caitlin Clark show. And now tonight, playing UConn, certainly the most successful of the in this era of women's basketball under Gino Auriemma, and they've got this woman Paige, whose last name we're not quite sure how to pronounce. We'll just call her Buckets because she could fill it up.
I think it's Bucher, but I'm not sure. Bucher's, but yeah, somewhere in that range.
But anyway, so she's kind of a noted performer too. So
she's great.
It's a 9 p.m. kickoff or tip-off. Which it's pretty late. I'm gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna do to
I have dinner with a friend tonight, but hopefully we'll go to a place that has a TV so we can have that. I'm estimating they'll have anywhere between 15 and 18 million people watching that game, and the peak will probably be about, if it's a close game especially, the peak will be somewhere around 20.
I think it'll be a close game. I hope it is, and I hope it's entertaining. Well, Roberto, it's been wonderful to break bread with you again on our weekly pod. Great for everybody to join us live, and if you just popped in these last 10 minutes, it'll be out there again. It's on all the platforms and everything else, right, Roberto?
Absolutely. You can watch it from the beginning at your leisure, on demand.
At your leisure.
Yes.
Leisure.
Also, make sure to listen to the game on the radio tomorrow in Spanish and in English on the New York City FC app. And then both Glenn and I have previews. Mine is 90 minutes before the game, and it's on my Facebook page. It's also on my Twitter account, X account. I share it there, but it's also on the NYCFC Espanol account. And now I finally figured out how to be able to share it on Instagram. I don't have a lot of followers on Instagram, but it's there as well. So that's going to be 90 minutes before the game. So 6 p.m. from Citi Field, which, by the way, the Mets in a doubleheader yesterday didn't get 15,000 people, and New York City FC will probably get minimum of 18,000. The sellout for the way that it's configured at Citi Field is 23.5. That's the most that they can get at Citi Field, unless it's way in advance that they have to open up other sections. Oh, by the way, I got one more because it's important. Tickets were released this week for the Inter Miami game, September 21st at Yankee Stadium. It seems all 48,000 plus seats are available for this game, and it was $209 and change as the cheapest ticket in the 400s. But tickets are available. Right now it's on pre-sale. After that, it's going to go, for everybody. So, but that's it. So if you're not a season ticket member like I am, then you're going to have to pay $209 for the game. Maybe you want to buy season tickets, it'll come out, different. And you should buy season tickets.
Any physical therapists in the audience, you might want to send a message, all the tips you can, to have a secure hamstring for September the 21st, so that you get every nickel that you're going to spend to see that game. So Roberto and Ariel at 6 with their live stream. With the pregame, Maddie and I will be on at 6:45 with the same. And then for both of us, airtime 7:15 for our live commentary with our pregame show. And then 7:40 p.m. the kickoff. So it was 7:39 last year. This year it's 7:40. I don't know what they're doing with that extra 60 seconds, Roberto. I've been looking. I can't quite tell. But
probably sold an extra ad.
There you go. All right. For Roberto, I'm Glenn. Thanks for being with us. Sammy, our producer, thanks so much. And till next time, have a good night, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.